Hey, welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge media narratives and maybe even demolish them. With us again is notable national litigator Robert Barnes and Peter Lavelle, host of RT's show Crosstalk. We have a problem coming up in this election, which is that neither side is ready to acknowledge defeat should it happen in the next election. We had Hillary Clinton saying the other day, telling Joe Biden not to concede under any circumstances. This after, denouncing Trump for refusing to acknowledge defeat. But apparently, it's fine if she just simply says no concession. So, but it could go the other way. Also, again, the Republicans would also not accept a Democratic victory. So, Robert, what's likely to come about after November the 3rd?
I think we're going to see something, unless one side or the other wins by 2 points or more, you're going to see Bush v. Gore on steroids. Yeah. And so, I represented Ralph Nader. I've done a lot of election lawsuits over the years. And after Nader was successful in 2000, they waged a legal war on him of unprecedented scale in 2004 because it leave it to the two-party system to recognize that a third party was a greater threat than either party to itself. It was Republican judges, secretaries of state leading the war against Nader, even though on paper he helped W's re-election campaign in 2004. So I think you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see Bush v. Gore, the Nader wars on steroids. They're already talking about thousands of lawyers working tens of thousands of hours in anticipation of lawsuits everywhere. And so I think and then you're going to see some attempts, I suspect, to steal votes. Mail-in balloting, the reason why Trump is harping on it is because it's the easiest means to inflate the number of votes that you can steal. As an old Democratic hand told me when I was a kid in Tennessee, I asked him how they always managed to get a certain vote percentage out of some key precincts in a rural county. And he said, well, Bobby, it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes that counts.
Stalin said the same.
Stalin, yes, that's right.
What I find really dishonest in the media right now is Trump in the post office. All of these elections, they're in precincts, they're in congressional districts, they're all done by states. There's no way in the world Trump could even if he wanted to. He can't, because it's the it's how I forget the term. It's custody. It's the custody of the ballot. I mean, the federal government has nothing to do with custody of ballot. I don't know what these people on CNN and MSNBC are talking about all of the time. The federal government has nothing to do with the custodianship of these ballots. They never have, and it was done purposely so fraud wouldn't be committed. Okay. But now this decentralization, which I think the U.S. electoral system is so antiquated, it really needs a major reform, but it works for the powers that be, okay? And there are fiddling with the with mail-ins, okay? But if you have it on what was it there was one election in New York where 22% of the votes were thrown out. Okay, why were they thrown out? It was determined by a local authority. Not even Albany, but within the confines of the electoral area, if it was a city or a county. So this is all hot air. But what I'm really worried about is the media's role in this, and social media. Okay, they will amplify everything. We had Nick Sandmann. Good on him. He looked great at the convention there, and I hope he's got money for his great grandchildren. Okay, but see what they did to him over nothing. And he was just cannon fodder for them. Trump is the big fish. So I worry, to be honest with you, I worry about social breakdown, okay? Because I have this phrase that people are ideologically possessed, okay? And that means you can't talk to them. And we are in one of these elections where you can't talk. All right. And what I try to do on Crosstalk, we're on vacation right now, and what George and I try to do here is we bring in the whole field, everybody, and let you have your say. And so far, it's been very civil. If you want it to be civil, it can be. People that want to rig this election, personally, I think it's one side. They're not civil.
Well, let's change subject a little bit. We've talked about the election, and now let's talk a little bit about the law, since we've got a distinguished lawyer here, so he can lend us his legal expertise. You have been saying for some time that you really don't think very highly of the Durham investigation. You don't think he's going to bring any kind of criminal charges against anybody. We've had one person, Kevin Klein-Smith, who pleaded guilty last week, but I think you're saying that that's about it. There won't be anybody else. So you just elaborate on that. Why don't you think there'll be anybody else?
Yeah, sort of the thematic unity of the subjects is the way litigation is going to impact the elections. Because if any meaningful action was going to occur in the fall, then Durham's investigation could impact the election. If he indicted James Comey, indicted Andrew McCabe, indicted John Brennan, indicted Clapper, or even Lisa Page or Peter Strzok, or I guess it's pronounced Stroke. I don't think any of that's going to happen. There's a whole bunch of the Q folks, other folks who think it's going to happen. It's not. The way in which the Klein-Smith plea deal was done is such that it basically foreclosed the possibility, meaningful possibility, of any indictments coming against anyone higher ranking, because they had a smoking gun against Klein-Smith. You almost never have evidence where you have the guy doctoring the email, you have him communicating by email, doctoring the email, you have that doctored email in the FISA warrant that everybody signed their name to, that everybody had reason to know was materially false. And you let him walk on that because he pleads to that being fictitious, but he told the court he still thought it was accurate. He was changing the email to make it more accurate somehow. So once they let him say that meant he can't implicate anyone else. Plus, there's no cooperation agreement in the agreement. There's no need for him to cooperate, no leverage for him to cooperate, and it fits Durham's history. Durham is the guy that covered up the CIA torture scandal when the CIA was torturing at Guantanamo, destroyed all the evidence while the investigation was pending. John Brennan then later spied on the Senate related to that investigation, and Durham let everybody walk. So as soon as he was picked, I was suspect. I think Barr recognizes that he's an institutionalist. I think he does recognize this got out of hand, but he wants to resolve it with a report that says bad, 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 not with meaningful legal consequences to the big actors.
So it's protecting the culture within the institution itself. It's like having the police investigate themselves. Okay,
exactly. And they say this low guy here on the totem pole, we'll let him be a sacrificial lamb, and all the big guys, bad, bad, bad. We'll put a little reprimand in your report, in your little file, but with no meaningful consequences at all. And the reality is, he had to deliver somebody's big head on a stake. And by the way, I think this is why Trump is talking about Snowden. He may later shift to Assange, because I think this is, if Trump sees no indictments happen, no matter whether he wins or loses re-election, I think he's going to pardon one or both as a response to what he sees as a group of people that tried to take him out of the presidency and made his life living hell.
But don't you think, George and Robert, then this means it's open season? The deep state now, you've been given permission to go into politics. That is the worst slippery slope I could ever imagine. Okay, in the Soviet Union they called it telephone justice. Okay, and that's where we're sliding to. I'm afraid there's a lot of people, and I don't think you have to be intensely political, but a lot of people that see this fraud on the democracy and on our democratic institutions and say, if there's no one that's going to really take the fall, then it's going to happen again.
Yes, and then now the Klein-Smith, as you say, they've got him dead to rights. There he is. He's doctoring government documents. I mean, it's an open and shut case. Now, I would find it surprising that he just did it off his own bat, didn't consult anybody, didn't talk to his higher ups. I mean, these are smart people. They work in hierarchical organizations. They know that you just don't do things without clearing it with your boss.
The wink and the nod.
Yes,
absolutely. That's what this was. What happened was Mueller had taken over the investigation, so they realized they needed to paper the file because they'd been lying about Carter Page from the get-go so they could spy on everyone else. Carter Page's FISA was their ticket to spy on everyone else because of the two-hop rule that allows FISA so that it's basically a warrant on Page and everybody who knew Page and everybody who knew Page. I mean, that's what it was. And the whole basis was, hey, he's been meeting with these Russian spies, not disclosing he actually was doing it on the CIA's behalf. So behest. So and they realized, man, we got to paper this so this looks legit because we've been lying for over a year to the FISA court. And so somebody at top tells likely Peter Strzok, and it goes down to Kleinsmith, we could really use an email or a document that says this. And everybody knows Kleinsmith knows what they're requesting. Make sure it says this. And Kleinsmith's just a half-wit criminal. He doesn't realize he's supposed to make sure the CIA was still on the same page as they were when Brennan was there and Brennan's proteges were there. And, hey, send me this email, not send me that email. And unfortunately, they sent him the wrong email. And he's like, oh, doggone it. I just have to change this. And there's no question, and that's why letting him off the hook and saying not only not implicating anyone, but saying, by the way, if my bosses were right to rely on that because I thought that made the email more accurate, that made the FISA correct, and it's like this is insane. He's not even pleading to a crime, and the court handling the case somehow magically, random assignment. The court handling the case is neck deep in the FISA corruption from sitting on the FISA court that approved the page warrants. So it's a debacle.
It seems to me, though, George and Robert, is that this neoliberal elites, and I'm not talking about parties here. They want to maintain the status quo. Okay, they screwed up, they got caught, but we found a culprit, and he'll do his time, and nothing more to see here. I think it's self-serving for those elites, because what do the elites want most? They want to maintain the status quo. That's what they want. And you have this boiling anger in the electorate that say, no, we keep voting for change and we're not getting it, okay? And I think we go full circle here. We need a much more vibrant populist message. And, we need, or I've said this many times before, or face the pitchforks. Face the pitchforks.
And when you think of the torment that they had inflicted on Mike Flynn, I mean, it's already 3 years and counting, and he's still mired in this Kafkaesque legal debacle. Carter Page, we know all this. And, apparently no one's going to get punished for this. The people who inflicted this torture on completely innocent people, they just walk.
Exactly. Yeah, and you have Paul Manafort, which he's probably as dirty as they come, but he did that everything he did was before his political connection to Trump. Okay.
And not only that, it was done at the behest and under Tony Podesta, who magically never got criminally prosecuted.
Yeah.
And his he was referred to the Southern District, and we're seeing the Southern District of New York go after Steve Bannon on small change related to the Build the Wall case. Mostly because one guy allegedly overpromised services. Well, if you start criminalizing every GoFundMe account statement, I guarantee you 2/3 of the BLM GoFundMes that get set up would not pass that test. But it's the Southern District of New York who just coincidentally decides to bring this indictment a week before the conventions when Trump was starting to pick up on Bannon's messaging on America, back to populist rhetoric again. That's not a coincidence. It shows that the political prosecutorial processes in the United States have been weaponized to favor deep state institutional politics.
Okay. Can I just push back just a tiny, tiny bit? It doesn't mean there wasn't malfeasance. Okay.
Oh, no, not at all. It just is selective prosecution.
Yeah.
In other words, it's the Clinton Foundation somehow didn't make any mistakes, and they're based out of the Southern District of New York. And only that, and then of course Steve Bannon has no ties to the Southern District of New York. Refer this to wherever he lives. Well, why are they prosecuting this case? And you've got no donors complaining. Apparently, it's like this is the craziest prosecution for a fraud case I've seen. And the way I always put it is, it's the old Beria statement to Stalin. Yeah, don't worry about showing me the crime. Show me the man, and I'll find you the crime. If I put anybody in Washington under microscopic review, I could put 90% of them in jail because none of them meet the test to a large degree.
Certain politics.
Exactly.
And so that's like how much of the money that was raised for the Clinton Foundation actually went to projects rather than on the handsome salaries.
Did you say Christopher Steele?
And so
yeah. Yeah. Or the kickbacks. I mean, the Build the Wall people are being under indictment, even though over 90% of the money went to actually the wall, while Clinton Foundation was never prosecuted for anything, civilly or criminal, while apparently less than 10% went to the donation sources. So that was just one pay-for-play scam.
All right. Thank you very much, Robert. Thank you, Peter. Stimulating discussion, very enjoyable. I'm sure our listeners will derive many benefits from it. Thank you again, and we'll be back soon.